Okay, so this part of the process is going to show us how to make this little piece where our plant is actually going to fit inside, how to attach that onto our textured slab that we have already created. So at this point, you really need this design to look how you want it, okay? So, and you'll definitely want to check with me to make sure that you are on the right page there. So I have my clay tools, and I want mine, I kind of want it to be in this, kind of like how this sketch is in this area. So how I'm going to do that is I am going to create a shape, like a skinny little rectangle. Okay, now this would be way too big to create my pocket, but basically we're going to be creating a little pouch. Okay, so if I turn it like this, we're going to be creating a little pouch that the plant will fit inside of here. Okay, so what I need to do is I just kind of need to think about, okay, how far do I want it to stick out? Okay, so be kind of like this. Now before I start any of that, I'm going to finish up with some of the texture that I want to use. So to do that, I'm first gonna take my slip. If I can get it open, there we go. And I'm gonna carefully just smooth out these edges a bit. Remember, you can use this sponge for this too. Okay, so I'm gonna use one of these stamps, so I don't have to use the same texture throughout it. I kind of wanna play around with it a little bit. Use one of the stamps that you made. Create some different textures there. Okay. So I have the texture there. Now, I'm gonna kind of flatten that out so it's nice and even. So now I'm gonna figure out how big I want it to stick out, okay? So I really don't want it to stick out a lot. Probably about like that. So I'm gonna cut off this area to about here. Let's start with that, okay? So if I were to attach this here, that's still gonna stick out quite a bit. So I'm gonna even make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so you'll kind of have to play around with it a little bit. All right, so this is pretty good for what I want, all right? So then you just have to work on forming it so that it fits your shape, okay? Now, the other thing we have to do though, we have to create a bottom for it, okay? So watch what I'm going to do here. This is the shape that I want it to be in, so I'm gonna keep it like that. I'm gonna take some of the piece of the slab that I already had, and that's how I'm gonna attach it, okay? So I'm gonna take this, smooth it out. You might have to re-roll a slab out. And it's kind of gonna match up there. So I'm gonna turn it this way then, so it gets that shape. And watch what I'm gonna do here. Okay, I'm actually going to just lightly trace around, but I'm not cutting all the way through right now. I'm gonna move that so I kind of know where that outline is. And remember, when we attach clay, we have to do something called slipping and scoring. So I'm gonna take this serrated rib and I'm gonna score. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my slip, dab it around the outside here. I'm gonna press this onto that area, trying not to change the shape of it. And then I'm gonna take that tool and I'm actually gonna cut all the way through. I'm gonna turn this so I can see it. Okay, so now we have a little pocket with a bottom on it. And now when I go to attach it, it has the little base there, okay? Now this sticks out quite a bit, okay? So if you don't want it like that, there's another option that you could do. Okay, so then the other way, I got a new slab here. We're gonna smooth this out. Instead of cutting a straight rectangle like I did for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do like an inverted trapezoid shape. So it's going to kind of look like this. Then I'm going to even this out. Now you can always really measure this or use a ruler for this part too. Okay, so now I can position on here where I want it to go. And that's a little too high for what I want, a little too big. So I'm actually gonna make it a little bit thinner. And trim the side. Okay. All right, that's a little bit better for what I want. Okay, so I can add texture to this, or I can leave it. I think I'm just going to add just like a little stamp texture here. And then I think I'm just gonna leave the rest of that solid. So now what I'm going to do, and this is what you'll do for both of these, depending on which one you like better, which design, okay? So I'm gonna start by scoring here, because that's where I'm going to be attaching it, or if you're scoring here, okay? So if I'm attaching it here, so I'm going to make score lines here. Take your slip, put it over top, and now I'm going to press. I know this might be kind of hard to see, okay? But I'm going to press this in, and then what you need to make sure to do is position it where you want to score it on the other side. So I'm scoring, and then I'm going to score here, add the slip, and then I'm going to lightly press down here. Okay. Now work on smoothing all of this out. Okay, but I have these like lines here, okay, and this part right here. So watch what I'm going to do. And first, you can use a variety of the tools that you have in your bin. I'm gonna mend this seam by smoothing this in, okay, to kind of get rid of that line. I don't wanna see a line at all there anymore when we're attaching it, okay? So I'll do that on that side and this side. Sometimes too, it actually works to take the serrated rib and kind of roughen up the edges and then smooth it out, or use that smooth rib to smooth it out, and it'll get nice and smooth, okay? So then we still have this guy. It kind of looks like a flip-flop right now, like a slide. But we have this space down here. So what I'm gonna do is I am just going to lightly with my thumbs, I'm gonna start pressing this down. And as I'm pressing it, I'm smoothing it in to this clay piece, okay? You could also use a tool like this to smooth down into. Just be careful to not get rid of any of that texture, or if you do, you might have to go over top of it again, okay? So then we have a closed pouch, okay? So I'm gonna work on smoothing that out just a little bit to clean that up. Notice if I'm doing any smoothing on here, I'm gonna put my hand on the inside so that I don't flatten it out. Okay, so I'm actually just gonna smooth over this whole bottom part down here and re-roll that texture, because I think that'll be easier than trying to work around it. Okay. So nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm going to still work on smoothing this out a little bit more, but for the sake of demonstration here, to finish this off then, if this is what you're doing, or if you wanted to do the version like this, you would attach that. Nope, so let me put my texture back on there. Okay, so then we do want to make sure that we have holes for hanging. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take an end of a pencil, and I don't want it to be right up at the top, kind of middle down. I'm going to press holes, and I'm going to make them even as I can. Okay, so then I'm going to press those holes there, and then when it is time to hang it there, we're gonna have a space to put that in. Okay, so the last thing that you'll do then is just take your pencil, write your name on the back of it, and then I will show you where to set that out to dry. Okay.